In the next 2 minutes, I am going to show you something you probably haven't noticed, but it's so important that it will change the way you think about AI. One of the first things people do when a new model comes out is to go to artificialanalysis.ai to find out how well it scored in the intelligence index. You've probably been doing this for quite some time. It's fun, and there's lots of information here. But here's one thing you probably haven't noticed. Humans are really bad at keeping track of changes over time. We're even worse when things change rapidly, like with the changes in AI. Simple questions like, what was the state of the art at the end of 2025 in foundation models, are difficult to answer without looking it up. Take this, for example. Here's a list of frontier models by release date and capabilities. That's solid progress, mid-30s to low 60s. Great. What's the timescale? Let's get rid of the most recent ones. Those are pretty easy to remember when they came out. Here's the next question. What was the cutoff date? When was GPT 5.4 released? You have a better memory than me. It was April 2026. Here's the rest of the motley crew. The takeaway is that GPT-5 was released a year ago. It was a big deal at the time. Now let's play a game. Here are our contestants.
One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong.
I'll give you a hint. It's this one, Qwen 3.827b. If you guessed Qwen 3.827b, you are correct. Notice that the Qwen score of 52 is very close to the GPT 5.4 score of 53. Okay, that was the reveal. What does it mean? And here is the insight. This means frontier-level capabilities are moving into models small enough to run locally, and once they're local, you can start shaping that capability around your application. The other side of that coin is that it makes planning harder. A capability that isn't practical when you start your project may become so during development, and suddenly it's something the application has to have. Getting close to frontier capability sounds impressive. But when you actually use one of these models, what does that buy you? And can you count on it? We'll answer that later. First, how fast does it run? We're running our benchmarks today on a Jetson AGX Thor developer kit, so we can take a look at its Blackwell-specific NVFP4 optimizations. We can also run this model on AGX Orin. Let's look at 3 different configurations. For the inference servers, we are using VLLM and llama.cpp. There are 3 different quantizations. BF16, which is native. NVFP4 is a NVIDIA-specific quantization, which you might think of as 5-bit in practice. Then we have Q4KM, which is a 4-bit typical quantization for the Llama server. The MTP stands for multi-token prediction, which is a speculative decoding technique. We'll talk about that later. Now, when looking at benchmarks, you have to either study them and understand what they really reveal, or just take them with a grain of salt. Typically, you'll see people quote a token generation number as if it is the metric you should be paying attention to. Here we see that the full resolution BF16 forms the baseline, and that by using quantization, we can speed that up dramatically. We assume that brings with it some level of degradation in the quality of output. NVFP4 appears to give it a nice little bump, but remember that it's a comparison between 2 different servers. The first numbers are with the zero context, basically just processing the prompt you give it. When you add different turns to the context, the servers may act differently. Remember, agentic workflows tend to use context. They rarely just one-shot their prompt. You'll want to limit the context that you use for speed and efficiency's sake. While these models support very large contexts, in practice the results are impractical. The choice of server makes quite the difference. In these benchmarks, the llama.cpp results are not in the same ballpark as VLLM. Prompt processing is the one that has to work through all that context. In a token-hungry model like this one, the llama results make it seem unusable. To be fair, the tests were done only a few days after release. Those numbers will most likely improve significantly. In summary, VLLM has quite the speed advantage over llama.cpp. We've covered this before. The reason to use llama.cpp or products built on top of it, such as a llama, is its simplicity. For agentic use in this case, the low prompt processing speed makes it a no-go for agentic work. Around the same time that the Qwen model was released, NVIDIA released Nemotron 3.5 Lightning. Lightning is a 30BA3B mixture of experts model which scores 24 on the test. However, it is very fast. The question then becomes, how much intelligence do you need for your particular application? Another set of variables you need to think through is, where should you actually run the model? For a strict edge deployment, that's easy because it has to run on device. But many times you're actually on a network where you have a dedicated server or appliance that can handle the heavy lifting. Or you might want to use a cloud provider. We'll use build.NVIDIA as an example. There is no one-size-fits-all type of answer. It's a witch's brew of decisions you have to carefully think about. The basic idea behind speculative decoding is that you make an educated guess at the next several tokens. The main model checks those guesses together. If they pass, it can accept several tokens at once. If one guess fails, it keeps everything before that point. The main model supplies the next token. The rest of the guesses are discarded, and speculation starts again. dFlash, dSpark, and MTP are different ways of making those guesses, but it's no magic bullet. When we look at no speculation, dFlash, and dSpark, we can see major wins at small contexts. But when the context gets larger, the win gets smaller, and in the case of dFlash may even become a loss. Remember that prompt processing also degrades as the context gets larger. However, speculative decoding doesn't help in reading the prompt. It helps with writing the answer. If you're like me, benchmarks aren't a major criteria in selection. Let's see it run. Loading Qwen to run on VLLM takes 3.5 minutes once you download the model. If you're just exploring, suddenly the 15-second load time for llama.cpp makes it seem much more attractive. We'll compare Qwen and Nemotron Lightning in separate sessions and compare them using my exceptional split-screen editing skills. I command you, tell me a story about a dragon. Both think for a few seconds, and then Lightning starts generating text. Qwen keeps generating reasoning tokens and then starts displaying its output. You can see the difference between 90 tokens per second versus 18. There's a completely different feel. Both generate stories. They'll make you laugh, they'll make you cry, but most importantly, they will make you care. Qwen took 39 seconds to generate a story. Lightning took 24. If it is helpful, I'll point out that 24 is less than 39. Write a script which takes the contents of a directory and shows them in reverse alphabetical order in human readable form. Qwen is running the highest reasoning mode. It will spend more tokens constructing its answer. Here is where we need to manage our expectations. We are using the highest capability available here. We expect a good result. It takes Nemotron Lightning 20 seconds to complete the script. Qwen takes 6 minutes, 10 seconds. I'll helpfully add Nemotron Lightning was faster in this test. After copying Qwen's response to a file, let's run it. As a computer scientist, I would categorize this as an issue.
You lose.
After a quick 7-minute session, Qwen was able to fix the issue and come up with a working script. Lightning worked the first time. When we compare the two, Qwen is on the left. It's an interesting contrast. You'd probably want to go through a couple of iterations to tune it to your liking. 7 minutes seems like quite the penalty to pay in Qwen's case. We can theorize on why Qwen performed so poorly on this test, but remember that ALLM is non-deterministic. You can run this exact same prompt again and not receive the same answer. Treat this simply as a data point in testing your workflow. The recipes for running these models are on jetsonailab.com. This is a go-to resource for all things Jetson. The benchmark suite is LlamaBenchy. You can use this tool to test different backends as it measures throughput on any OpenAI-compatible endpoint. Another technology you should seriously investigate is NVIDIA Switchyard, a programmable policy router. This allows a prompt to be routed to a different model using either algorithmic or model-based classification. This makes it much easier to use more capable or less expensive models, depending on the task being performed. Expect to see a lot of work in this area because there's a lot of money in matching task to performance. After looking at all of this, I think the mistake would be to come away asking which model wins. The interesting part is that capabilities that recently required much larger models are now showing up in models you can actually run on a Jetson. And once you can do that, the model becomes something you can treat as part of the architecture rather than the architecture itself. You can shape it around the workload, you can trade some capability for speed, you can add tools, you can put multiple models behind a router and let the application decide which one makes sense for the work that's in front of it. This becomes an engineering project rather than a black box. The other side of that coin is that things are changing so quickly that the choices you make today may not match what people expect the project to do by the time it's finished. The danger is that you end up designing around limitations that may not exist when you ship.